Tucked away in the peace of New Boston, you'll find one of the most extraordinary collections of 80s memorabilia in the state.
It's complete nostalgia, and that's the number one drive factor in terms of collecting.
This is Tim Burnham. By day, the 32-year-old is a software engineer. By night, he's an arcade game collector.
Typically, I only get games that I remember from the early 80s when I was a kid.
Not just one or two. He has more than 40 games in his home.
First reaction is just eyeballs out of the socket. You know, I can't believe what I'm looking at. I can't believe this is your house.
He wanted to bring part of his childhood back to life.
When I was 11 years old, I worked in an arcade in Nashua, and I actually worked under the table because I was only 11 years old, and sometimes I would take payment in tokens.
Well, that was then, and this is now. About 5 years ago, Tim got the bug when he saw games in a friend's house.
The same questions that I'm asked every day when people come in here, I was asking him. Where do you get them? How much do they cost? How can I get one? You know, yada, yada. So the craze kind of began from there. I started with buying one game, and then the madness went to insanity. This is the very first game that I ever bought. I was very excited when I brought it home. It was Tron. It was actually an agreement between Disney and the video game maker Bally Midway to create this game the very day and have it released the very day that the movie was released. I don't think what Disney realized was that this game would eventually make more money than the movie itself, which is interesting.
It's like a techie time machine in here. Many of these games haven't been seen in arcades for 25 years. You won't see titles like Krull or Adventures of Major Havoc today. And most are the real deal, too, not recreations. These games, in a way, are antiques.
You're making me very unhappy.
Now, one of the neat things about these games is not so much that they work and you can play them, but there's a lot of nostalgia locked up in these things. So for people who get to use them, it brings back a lot of memories, like how bad I was at video games. Now, you may be wondering, where did Tim get all these games? You know, the classics. The answer is a network of enthusiasts, mainly on the internet, who buy, sell, and trade. And it can be pricey.
Typically, for a PacMan in this shape, you're looking to spend about $800. A lot of times I'll try to find collectors that are in the Northeast in particular that may have 20 games and they're looking to get rid of 10, or 10 games and they're looking to get rid of 5. So I'll just hop in my truck and I'll go down to either Philadelphia or New Jersey or New York or Vermont or anywhere in New England, and generally we'll pick up games in bulk. They've been put in a barn, put in a warehouse, put in someone's garage. They're usually in storage for 10, 15 years where they haven't been used at all. So they collect a lot of dust. They don't improve in condition. They get weathered. They may be outside a certain part of its life. And so usually when we get them, they're in less than museum quality. This is a typical scenario. As you can see, the side is really dirty. The artwork has started to peel, and it's just really in rough shape. Fortunately, another collector, actually in Derry, New Hampshire, reproduced the artwork, and as you can see, it came out absolutely beautiful.
Tim still likes to play the old games, but the bigger thrill now is refurbishing them. He does a lot of the work himself, learning what he needs to from the network of other gamers.
Put on brand new artwork. I put 3 coats of yellow on the side, sanded down all the nuts and bolts, and applied brand new artwork. So this game actually became a museum quality sort of condition. I have an Asteroids machine over there that I got at the local dump, and it was a 99-cent transistor to get it working again. So I was pretty happy about that. So the whole game cost 99 cents.
Over his 5 years of collecting, he's fixed up dozens of games. He's bought and sold nearly 200 so far. A bit over the top, maybe, but his wife and daughter don't seem to mind. Not that much, anyway.
She thinks I'm crazy. When I brought home the very first game, she thought it was kind of interesting. She thought it was a little crazy. But then when she started hearing U-Hauls come in at 5 a.m. with 10, 15 games at a time, she knew that I had just kind of became insane.
Call him crazy. This collector doesn't mind. He's brought back part of his past. And anyone who comes here, even me, seems to get a real click out of it.
Sometimes we'll have a weekly poker game, and so being a bunch of poker players, they also like to play video games. So sometimes it may be 1, 2, or 3 in the morning, and I just have to turn off all the games and tell people to go home.
I got PacMan fever.